It is Monday, and it was a mixed bag on the election front over the weekend. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. Despite bombshell video evidence and without logical explanation, Georgia says it will recertify its election results. Over the weekend, Georgia Congressman Jody Hice tweeted out a revelation about a test conducted on sequestered Dominion voting machines. It seems these machines were fed an equal number of Trump versus Biden ballots, but the machines in turn awarded Biden a 26% advantage. In his tweet, the congressman called to examine all the machines. Seems like common sense to me. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign was granted access to 22 voting machines in Michigan. A report on those could be due out by tomorrow. And according to the Epic Times, the Arizona legislature has called for an immediate forensic audit of Dominion voting machines. Trish Regan, Mary Walter, Mike Reagan, along with our very own Grant Stinchfield, will be along to break down the state of the race and other significant news stories. Meanwhile, it was an interesting weekend for the Chris Salcedo Show. As many of you know, Newsmax TV, as a result of our measured election coverage, has earned some new viewers after some news organizations broke faith with their viewers on election night. As a result of the increased eyeballs comes the inevitable sniping from lying and morally bankrupt people. Responding to the dishonest left and the perpetually ineffective surrender caucus. That's what we will take a few moments to do in tonight's preamble. Both Media Matters, a Clinton outfit, and a left-wing site called Hill Reporter took some shots at your liberty-loving Latino over the weekend. Media Matters wrote, Newsmax host says Stacey Abrams, quote, believes she's entitled to power because of the color of her skin, end quote. Though not providing the entirety of the context, that quote is correct. Getting into a bit more dishonesty was Todd Nakirk at the Hill Reporter. His headline read, Newsmax host racistly says of Stacey Abrams, your skin color doesn't entitle you to anything in the United States. First off, racistly? Not even a word. That should give you an idea of the lack of intellectual heft and credibility of that page. Both Media Matters and Nakirk neglected to inform their readers that I'm a Latino. Now, why do you think that is? More on that in a moment. The new Georgia Project, which was founded by Abrams and previously chaired by Democrat Socialist Senate candidate Raphael Warnock, is currently under investigation for seeking out-of-state and dead voters. It's instructive why a group like this would allegedly undertake such clearly illegal and unethical practices. This entitlement to power is endemic of those on the left. Win at all costs. That's their motto. Leftists often use political correctness to insulate themselves from criticism or accountability under the law. Some, like the white folks in Antifa, call their opponents Nazis. They do this in an effort to justify their lawless behavior by beating their political enemies senseless. People like Abrams and Warnock do the same, utilizing their skin color to institutionalize unfairness. This double standard that's usually reinforced by the dishonest press leads to such idiocy as Senate candidate Raphael Warnock arguing that Stacey Abrams' refusal to concede her election loss to Brian Kemp is different from President Trump not conceding until all legal challenges are exhausted. Remember, Kemp won 2 years ago. It's been a little over a month since the presidential election. But circling back to the alleged writer Nakirk, he claims that I'm behaving racistly by declaring that your skin color doesn't entitle you to anything in the United States. That's 100% true. In the United States, merit is the deciding factor in who succeeds or fails, or at least it should be. Not to put too fine a point on this, but the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed of a society where we were all judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin. Now, we have liberals on college campuses talking about separate but equal gatherings, openly asking whites, not to be a part of their groups. We have Facebook refusing to police racism against whites on their platform. There's a movement to have separate proms where whites and children of color attend separately. Again, all sponsored by left-wing liberals. See, Nakirk's big problem with me is that I don't bend the knee to those on the left who use their race to advance their anti-American agenda. I have wandered off the liberal reservation, and Mr. Nakirk doesn't like it very much. He alleges that my criticism of Abrams makes me racist against blacks, which of course is absurd. But let's have some fun here, shall we? Let's use this left-winger's own standards and apply those standards to him. Todd Nakirk was very critical of your liberty-loving Latino. Doesn't that make him racist against Latinos? I mean, using his own standards. The long knives have also been coming out from the never-Trumper wing of the GOP. In a piece entitled, "This Is Your Brain" on Newsmax, author Tim Miller went after our entire network, not just yours truly. In this piece, Miller walks through one of our days on Newsmax TV. I should say most of the day, because he begins his analysis at 11:20 in the morning. Presumably this is the time when he rolls out of bed. Anyway, the piece slimes and slams many of our fellow Newsmaxers, and then he gets around to me. Here Miller dismisses my over quarter century in TV and radio news and opinion and classifies me as, quote, a talk radio guy. And then he says I have some weird excrement in the show. He uses the S word. Classy, huh? He then summarizes the show by saying the word Marxist a lot, and then really gets his hackles up when I criticize President Obama. These never-Trumpers really don't like it when real conservatives are critical of the chosen one. His last two bullet points are as follows. Barack Hussein Obama, whom Salcedo calls a reprobate, has been pimping a book that's used to advance a Marxist agenda. Parentheses, have any of these guys read Marx? Salcedo suggests that Biden taking office would lead to a race war. Yes, I have read Marx. But Miller makes half a good point there. Obama isn't exactly a Marxist. Many of we real conservatives use this term as, kind of shorthand to denote a Marxist-Leninist bent. In my mind, that differentiation clearly articulates my opinion of Obama and his designs on my country. And counter to what Mr. Miller wrote, we detailed our concerns, using analysis of the slide in race relations under Obama to indicate that a race war could be in the offing, as liberals have done so in the past because they think it works to their advantage politically. Now, Tim Miller's attack on me and this network is even more instructive than the anti-American left's attack on us. Miller was previously political director for Republican Voters Against Trump. Shocker. He was the communications director for Jeb Bush 2016. And at some point, he was a spokesman for the Republican National Committee. Before Trump, this defender of socialist Democrats was a spokesperson for the GOP. He is emblematic of a piece I wrote in the Reactionary Times that outlined this type of Republican and their mindset. They think their job is to normalize the deviancy of Democrats. It also bears pointing out that Miller's piece was retweeted by none other than Bill Kristol, one of the leaders of the surrender caucus mindset that nearly destroyed the GOP had President Trump not stepped in. Newsmax frightens guys like Kristol and Miller. The last thing they want is another Fox to rise. It took them over 20 years to defang and hobble the first media outlet, not to treat the GOP as pariahs. Think about it. Guys like George Will spent his final days on that network down the dial telling the GOP how they should give up their objections to illegal immigration with massive influxes of caravans streaming over the border in the Obama years. Tim Miller took great offense at my criticism of the most anti-American president this nation has ever seen, Barack Hussein Obama. And Bill Kristol, a man who used to be synonymous with conservatism, has shown his advocacy to be all an act, joining forces with the likes of Rob Reiner to savage a president, Trump, who is only guilty of trying to fulfill the promises to conservatives that Kristol and company were content to merely talk about and never deliver on. Wow. The perpetually ineffective never-Trumpers teaming up with the socialist left. And only one network, Newsmax TV, to call them out. Now I can see why they lie and don't like us very much.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.